All right. Hey, Jill, how's it going?
Good, Kyle. How you doing?
Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to give some expert advice from our resident expert about when you're transitioning in kind of your transportation operation from a manual environment to a digital one. Now, before we even begin to give that advice, I think we should set up the sort of why. Why are we kind of seeing people doing this? Why are people coming to us to have like the assistant kind of doing that type of stuff? And typically when people come to us, the first thing they're doing is like, hey, I want to save money. Like our freight's way too expensive, but we're getting more and more people coming to us because they're just trying to keep up with what the carriers are doing, what the customers are doing. Everyone's going digital. So I want to talk about what are the issues if you're staying in a manual environment. I think there's kind of two big areas where it is. And I think the first one is essentially the budget. Why does staying in a manual environment in your transportation operation affect your budget?
Yeah, so I think you're 100% right. I would say 15 years ago, everyone just talked about, I need to reduce cost. I need to reduce my transportation spend. And now they're saying, we need help. And really, they're scared. When you're in this manual environment, you're recognizing that you don't have any access to any real data. And you're also working with carriers who are now in a digital environment and you're struggling with it. And so that kind of breeds some fear, right? I can't see my spend. I don't understand my lanes. And I also have a lot of people here emailing and phone calling and really trying to figure out where freight is and who has it. And then on the back end, we're being asked questions of, well, what is your transportation budget? And can you accrue cost? Can you accrue it down to item levels? And in this manual environment, you just have no idea.
Right. And like you said, right, the carriers are digital too. So you're probably like, listen, they've got a leg up. And if you're not in digital, they're going to put out the price that they like, what's going to help them, what's going to benefit them, because at the end of the day, it's business.
So that's the other side of it that you bring up is, so your manual and your carriers are digital and your carriers have gotten a lot better at pricing freight.
Right.
And they've gotten a lot better because they're bringing in the technology to understand what business, what freight, what works in their operations, and they can measure themselves now.
Now, what about the other option? The other big, not option, but the bigger area that's kind of affecting when you're in a manual environment, which is what your employees are doing. Talk a little bit about what the issues are when you're human operated, not really machine automated.
Yeah. And, it's stuff we talk about a lot here because we are in this digital environment and then we're working with folks who either are or they're not.
Right.
And so this push for, we want our people to be able to do good work that, even that they're intrigued by, right? We don't want them on hold for 3 hours with a carrier trying to get status of a shipment. And today, truth be told, if you're in a manual environment, that's what you're doing. And I don't think companies fully understand that carriers don't have big departments of people answering phones anymore. Even in dispatch, you used to be able to call a dispatcher and say, is your guy still on Route 24, your driver? When's he showing up? You can't do that anymore. It's all driven by technology.
All right. So I'm sold. I think you got to transition. It makes total sense. So let's give them some advice. I mean, you have over 30 years in transportation. You've seen it all, and we're a digital company. So let's start with some advice. Let's break it down. Kind of what's the first thing someone should really think about when transitioning from a manual environment to a digital one?
Yeah. So, what we do, the work we do with shippers, I think the first thing to really understand is what is available today in my ERP system. So you usually find it, even if you're in a manual environment as it relates to working with your transportation providers, that you're getting orders, whether they're purchase orders or they're sales orders, you're getting them into your ERP system. What's available in there? Under the mindset of that order, whether it's a purchase order or a sales order, will eventually be a shipment. So what is in there for data that's available to me?
Now, what are some issues when you kind of don't understand that? What's something that like we've seen, like an experience where, hey, you didn't really understand that, and now like something bad's happening?
Yeah. We see it all, but you make a connection to an ERP and we now have orders dropping into our transportation management system and the addresses for pickup or the addresses for delivery are PO boxes. And you think, whoa, how is this even possible? Well, when someone's standing up a new supplier or they're standing up a new customer in an ERP, what they're mainly thinking about is who do I bill?
Right.
Or where is
right.
my bill going to come from?
Right.
And that's why you're seeing PO boxes and not physical addresses. You could be working with a supplier who's ABC company, but they're shipping out of 10 different facilities. You don't have all those physical facility addresses in your ERP. You need them. You need them. So you need to be mindful of, okay, I'm going to work digitally with carriers. What am I going to be able to provide them in this digital environment? Can I tender a real address for pickup? Do I know the shipping hours? I need to tender that to a carrier. They need to know.
Awesome. What about let's go to the second piece of advice. What's the next thing someone should really think about when transitioning from a manual environment to digital?
Well, so then you decide you're going to go digital. What are you going to use for technology? And do you understand how that technology works?
So
That's super important.
What do you mean by understanding how the technology works?
So this is where it gets really hard. So you decide you're going to go into this and into, let's say, a transportation management system, or you're even going to have your ERP talk to a warehouse management system. You need to make connections with carriers. And can your technology support connections with carriers? Does it have API technology? Does it have EDI technology? Just understanding. And a lot of times when you're working with technology or you're working with your IT department, they don't have the expertise that you have, which is, I know how this shipment needs to operate, and I know how I need to see it in this technology. Can this technology work? So really important as a transportation person or a supply chain person to be part of those discussions in tech with your technology people.
So what are some kind of questions to ask your technology people when just kind of starting to understand this before they even come to you?
Yeah. Well, in addition to physical addresses, can our technology in our ERP provide us cartons? Can it provide us weight? Can it provide us ship weight and dimension weight? Do we have a level of understanding of that? And then if we're going to make connections into a TMS system, what's the connection going to look like? Is it going to be an FTP? Am I going to send a 204? Really understanding, because you're going to get different data when you call for it differently from your ERP. The other side of it is then you're going to make connections with your carriers, and they're not all the same. And I know we talk about this a lot, but you'll have a carrier that, I have API technology, and so you're going to be able to track shipment through to delivery. But I also need to know when you've made the appointment with my customer, are you tracking that? And some will tell you they are, and others will tell you they won't. So really knowing what's available with your technology from the carriers, bringing that technology in.
Now it's a fascinating point, especially when you kind of start to make that transition, because it was something I talked about with Steve Aborn, one of our earlier podcasts, API and EDI technology. But there really is no standard. As much as you read, as much as you can do so much education to be like, I'm ready for this, but you get out there, carriers don't have a standard. They're going to kind of report on what they're going to report on,
right?
But it doesn't mean that it's going to exist the same as carrier A, carrier B, carrier C. Talk a little bit about that. What's something what is that oh no moment that a shipper would kind of experience or a transportation person's going to experience?
We see it a lot, especially with these timed appointment deliveries. So there are some customers out there that are really demanding, and they're monitoring all of your performance on delivery, as well as they have this pretty robust appointment process. And so if you're working with carriers that are unable to provide you certain criteria in order for you to scorecard and make sure your deliveries are happening when they're supposed to, you're going to get in trouble. And that goes back to, if we could step back to another, if I'm in this manual environment, what am I struggling with? You're really struggling with negotiating with carriers because you don't have that level of detail to actually show them, look at, these are the stats. This is the business that I'm in. These are the lanes that I'm shipping in. And these are the requirements of my customer. If you're in a manual environment, you have a hard time communicating that message to carriers, which is in the digital environment.
Right.
You then can get all these pieces, but you will still have carriers out there that can't meet the technology commitment that you require. So part of that negotiating with your carriers is really understanding what they can provide in technology.
And it goes back to that whole thing of really understanding the technology, because
True.
if you don't know that language, you really can't do it. So how much time should you really, how long should you be spending trying to learn the technology? Because I'm sure that when you're kind of going out there, you're kind of weighing the different options that are out there, you kind of spend a decent amount of time. But even once you kind of make that final decision, I'm all gung-ho, it's not like a turnkey solution.
You mean like buying the TMS technology?
Yeah, once you get the TMS, isn't it like how much time do you typically think or see when you kind of starting up to really research and learn and ask the questions? Like, what's that sort of onboarding process like?
And you hate to scare anyone, but this could be a year's research to find the right technology for you. But I think the best way to handle that is, you're going to bring in a bunch of different providers, but also network with people. Right. Call people in your industry that are using this technology or using some kind of technology to support a digital environment, and ask them what they're doing, and ask them what's working, ask them what's not working. Don't make the decision a singular decision. Really reach out to folks in the industry. There's plenty of people out there that are willing to talk about their experiences and their challenges with technology. It's almost like when you're trying to hire someone and you call their references. Go find those folks using technology in the way you need to use it and find out how they're doing it. Yeah, no, it's perfect advice. It's the same thing. It's like a normal kind of process, but you don't think about it because you're just like, especially if you've been doing something, it's like, oh no, I'm good. I can do carrier negotiations because I know exactly the carrier. And you're like, oh, wait a second. This carrier has so much data on me that like, I think I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't. It's a whole, like, I could see where like you kind of get in your mind that you don't need to do that, but like ask around, and everyone's happy to talk about digital because it's a very confusing thing a lot of times. It is. And I think it goes right down to this is none of these negotiations, whether they're with technology or they're with your carrier providers, should just be about price. You really need to understand the functions of these things, whether it's the carrier's operational functions, what they can provide for technology, and then in the technology you're providing, which again, you just said it. It takes a long time. You need some real good expertise. And if you're today in a manual environment and you're afraid, what we see happen is you end up going with a very large 3PL or a broker, and the broker is managing all that for you. So you're in this manual environment, and then you have the broker then, keying in your shipments into their technology, negotiating rates with carriers on your behalf, paying the carriers, and then charging you. You've outsourced your problems, and you're letting somebody else put a Band-Aid on your problems. And that usually, when you do it under those conditions, you are absolutely sacrificing service, and you're sacrificing price. You just are. They're going to charge you for it, They just are. Yeah, that's huge. I guess as we start to wrap up, let's go back to our little quick list because there's 2 or 3 things that you sent me too. So you kind of talked about it a little bit, but having cartons like skid shipment weight, why is that crucial to shipping, especially when you start to get into a digital environment? Yeah, I mean, it's a daily struggle with clients. The way freight is priced, unless you're in a full truckload model, the way freight is priced is by how much room is on that truck and what the weight of that shipment is. And then there's a whole dimensional weight that will come in if you're shipping parcel, if you're shipping freight forward or air, LCL. You really need to understand dimensional weight. And it's called a dim factor, and there's a math calculation, and depending on the mode and the pricing you've negotiated is how it's going to be billed. But basic fundamentals is you need to have, I have this many cartons that equals this many shipping units, because you may be putting those cartons on pallets, and the total weight of this shipment is X. Those are just fundamentals that you have to have. Then you start talking about dimensions. Our industry is, even in the domestic environment, carriers want to price dimensional pricing. And right now they're struggling because you don't have the ability. If you don't have the ability as a shipper to provide dimensional weight, you're leaving it up to them to tell you. Really important to try to grab it. Why didn't shippers have it? Why don't they have it when they're in a manual environment? So this is a long-standing discussion because some shippers do, and they do a really good. No, it's great. We're starting, I don't want to get off track, but we're starting a collaborative forum of like-minded people that want to talk about issues just like this. And this is one of them. You really got to be able to provide dimensions of your products at a ship level. And so many companies can't do that. So what do they do? And why can't they is what you asked. And I think traditionally, when you're setting up purchase orders and customer orders in ERPs, you're not thinking about what what it looks like at shipment level. And so that information isn't getting in there up front. And so at the shipping dock, folks are scrambling to key this information in, or actually, we've seen them write it on physical pallets with a Sharpie that this is going to be 48 by 40 and 66 inches high. That's the level of detail you want. And if you can get it in there digitally, you're just so far ahead of the game, and you need to be.
Yeah. No, it's
tough.
It's tough, and you can see why. I mean, you think of like I forgot which show we were talking about, but like we were talking like how like you think of you just like, tracking. It was something on tracking, but we are talking about how like, oh yeah, when I order off Amazon or order something, I'm watching my little shipment track, and I'm like,
right.
Oh, that's my little piece of package. But you forget that like that thing's it's in a semi truck, it's driving, it's moving along with a bunch of other things. And I could see where like if you're only in that manual environment, especially in the ERP, like you're thinking of it as that one product, but you're not thinking of the whole factor of everything that needs to move of that one product.
And then think about if you have mixed products. So we work with clients who ship many things, and they're shaped differently and they weigh differently. And then you put them on a pallet. So you may even have your carton dimensions in your ERP. But then when you take 3 cartons of this product and 4 cartons of that product and you put them on a pallet, your ship dimensions are not your package dimensions or your carton dimensions.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot.
Let's wrap up. What's the last thing we want to talk about? Master location file.
Yeah.
Talk to me about
Smart.
that. What's the thing with that? Why do you got to know where it is?
It goes right down to what's available in the order level. And so a lot of times, if you're a company, you're shipping to the same customers all the time. And let's say you're shipping to Kyle McNaught, and he really wants you at dock door 3 every time you show up. And he also doesn't want you coming in with a standard roll-up door. He needs swing doors. That you can put at the master location level so that when you tender that shipment to the carrier, those requirements are there.
Oh, so where in the manual environment, you normally have to worry, like Jerry knows that. And Jerry's the one who's talking to the carrier. This is sort of that, not to replace someone, but this person gets to focus on what we actually want them focused on. That's what the master location file is kind of doing.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a great point when it comes to this. I'm in a manual environment and I need to go digital. In all the years that I've been here, and we've stood up these freight management programs for companies, we've not replaced anybody. What we've done is we've allowed, most of the time, these supply chain and transportation folks were not hired to go out and get spot quotes via email on every shipment. And we're not hired to go out and trace shipments. No one even knew all that stuff had to be done.
Right.
They thought, the carrier will pick it up and he'll deliver it when he's supposed to. And, nothing bad's going to happen in between. And so what happens is by default, somebody gets this work and it's a lot of headaches. It's a lot of work. They're doing it manually. And what they can't do is be strategic. No one internally from a shipping and supply chain perspective knows their company better than they do, yet they're spending a lot of man hours working with carriers. Right? So what we help them with is getting in that digital environment, get rid of all the headaches, and we can help them work strategically with their carriers and really find the right service carrier and then negotiate the right price.
Right. Awesome.
Yep.
All right.
It's fun stuff.
So I think that's some great advice for someone who's looking to transition from that whole manual environment to digital. Let's give it a couple plugs. I think one thing I want you to talk about is Strand SEC 2020.
I don't even want to plug it. We want help.
Plug it. Yeah, but talk about what you're trying to do there. I think that's a fascinating thing that we should talk about.
Oh, good. Thanks. Yeah. So we collectively, internally have been talking for a while about, all these things we talk about here, whether it's problems in the food industry or problems with folks trying to get dimensionals for shipments. Right. There are just so many challenges in our industry. And I keep reaching out to folks, want to collaborate with them, want to talk about these things and help each other and then help the industry as a whole. And so we decided, we started joining some networking groups. And then on LinkedIn, let's say I went out and joined all these supply chain groups. And I go out and I ask a question, and a meaningful question. I just want to chat with folks and figure out how they're dealing with these challenges. And I don't get a lot of reply because inevitably, whether we're in a networking event or we're on LinkedIn in these groups, somebody thinks you're trying to sell them something. So it's changing the nature of the relationship. And I just want to talk to people. I really want to collaborate with people. So we worked with a New England-based company, actually CVS, and there's a great person, a great group of people over there, and they thought the idea was awesome as well. So in the middle of October, in a couple weeks from now, we're having our first, what we're calling Strand SEC 2020. And it's just a forum, and we just want to get some people together, whether you're a shipper, you're a receiver, even a carrier. It's not to sell. It's not to network. It's really just to sit around a table and collaborate together. So if it's something anyone out there is interested in, please reach out to Kyle, reach out to me. We would love to have you. And again, it's a forum for people who just want to talk about industry, talk about challenge, and help each other solve problems, whether it's operations, technology, or any of the above.
Yeah, we say no slide decks. No sales talk, just collaboration.
No, we're not even allowing name tags.
Yeah, none of that stuff. If you're
no free pens or goodie bags.
Although you do want a polo, which I've been trying to look for.
I do want a polo. Yeah, I want a uniform. And we are hosting this event this time, so it's at the Harvard Club in Boston, and we are gonna serve lunch.
Yeah,
we'll get a free lunch out
all
of
that
it
fun
for
stuff.
Sure.
Space is definitely limited. So abornco.com/TransTech2020 if you're interested in going. And just like Jill said, LinkedIn's probably the best place to reach out to you, right? Yep. Jill Clifford on LinkedIn. Yeah, perfect area. Just sit there and talk, and you want to talk. So
I do.
All right.
I do. Help us all solve problems together.
Oh, definitely.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Jill. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I want to give a huge shout out to Jill Clifford for sitting down and talking with me. There are plenty of things we didn't get to go into when you're transitioning to a digital environment. So let us know in the comments section what you find to be the most troublesome. If you've gone through it before, let everyone kind of know. Let's have a cool conversation in the comment section. If you liked the video, give us a like and share it with a colleague. And please subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this. So I'm Kyle McNaught. Peace.